And to trending now. This is a crisis that should bring people together. Unfortunately, some celebrities on social media are not up to that challenge, and they include an ABC presenter who should be ashamed of himself. Again. Last week, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson tested positive to this dangerous coronavirus. But ABC presenter Philip Adams celebrated by tweeting, "Dear virus, now that you've found number 10, Boris Johnson's address in Downing Street, now that you've found number 10, the address of the White House is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue," which is the address of Donald Trump. Philip Adams wants President Donald Trump now to get a virus that kills 1 in 5 people his age. How barbaric do you have to be an ABC presenter? Joining me is Daisy Cousens, YouTube star, columnist and Sky News contributor. Daisy, Philip Adams, he's a poor quality human being, claims to be compassionate, preaches hate. That's a bit of a template for a lot at the moment, but is he an exception on social media?
Well, no, he's absolutely not an exception on social media, Andrew. Social media, especially Twitter, is full of people who claim to be part of the tolerant, compassionate and loving left wing, and yet behave in a way that's completely opposite to that whenever they are confronted by someone who has a different political opinion to them. And certainly when Boris Johnson announced he had the virus, there were a not insignificant number of people who were wishing not only death but torment on Boris Johnson from the political left, which is quite disgusting. But it comes from this entitlement they sort of have, that they truly believe that they are the truly moral, enlightened class, and that therefore their political party should always be in power because that's the way things should be done. And they believe that anybody else is not only evil but dangerous. And we see similar sort of commentary coming out of the USA with Donald Trump. I mean, for example, pop star CHER tweeted the other day that she truly believes that Donald Trump is willing to sacrifice her and her elderly mother for the sake of the economy because she feels that he thinks that they're past their use-by date. There was more commentary from Joe Scarborough of MSNBC, who said that he genuinely believed that conservatives were willing to, and I quote, euthanize the elderly in order to protect the economy, which is just, of course, completely histrionic. But it is a perfect example of, Andrew, of what you just said, that there are a lot of political opportunists out there who have hijacked this virus in order to divide us rather than unite us.
The argument is not to euthanize or let the old die or don't care. It is to protect them with extra services. I've said that every time. We need a super Meals on Wheels army so that the most vulnerable stop dying. But it's so sick, you're quite right, Daisy, that journalists are even asking Donald Trump if he thinks deaths are acceptable. I mean, what a foul, offensive question. Listen.
How many? None. Okay. How many deaths are acceptable to me? None. Okay, none.
Daisy, you know, this dehumanising of Trump is absolutely obscene. I mean, we saw the journalists mock him for suggesting that a drug called chloroquine would be potentially, he said, a treatment. Now it's a treatment being deployed in several countries. What is it with this hatred of Donald Trump that journalists will not give the public a fair hearing on what's going on?
Oh, it's absolutely gross, isn't it? I mean, I didn't think the mainstream media in America could get any worse with their treatment of Donald Trump. But again, I've proven I have too much faith in humanity, Andrew, because they have made themselves even worse. And all of their coverage of him sort of ranges from misrepresentation to outright lies. I mean, there was a lie going around that he said the coronavirus was a hoax. Then that wasn't actually what he said. And then, of course, on the chloroquine issue, when Trump came out and said, look, there's this drug, it might work, it might not work, look, let's keep it positive, journalists went ratting around and found that in a different form, chloroquine can actually be used as a fish tank cleaner. So we're going around saying Donald Trump recommends fish tank cleaner to cure the coronavirus. Next minute, there's an Arizona couple in their 60s who see this coverage, realize they actually have some of this chloroquine fish tank cleaner in their cupboard, take it, one of them dies, and the woman, the wife, ends up in critical condition. And then the media blames Trump Trump for that, even though it was their commentary that caused these poor people to think that fish tank cleaner could cure the coronavirus. It is disgusting, it is irresponsible, and Donald Trump is 100% right when he says that at the moment the media in America is the enemy of the people.
I don't think you have to agree with all that Trump is doing, but you please have to put the hatred to one side and the point scoring and just try to give people the facts. Daisy, when we first brought Australians back home from Wuhan because they were scared, you know, it was virus central then, they were sent for quarantine to Christmas Island, our old detention centre there. Now, all returning Australians are sent instead to hotels that are now empty because of all the travel bans. We see now people of the left claim this shows our racism. We had Greens politician Jenny Leong saying, please remember next time someone says our country isn't racist and there's not discrimination against Chinese Australians, that people coming home from China were quarantined on Christmas Island, not in hotels. F racism. And former Race Discrimination Commissioner Tim Soutphommasane, who was also called a racist at the time for using Christmas Island, now says early this year Australians evacuated from Wuhan were quarantined on Christmas Island, now returning cruise passengers are quarantined in 5-star hotels. Well, is this difference really a consequence of our racism?
No, of course it's not. The very idea is completely laughable because, Andrew, anyone with even a modicum of intelligence will know that the issue was timing. I mean, back when people were quarantined on Christmas Island, we were not yet at the stage where all the hotels were empty and therefore available for supervised quarantine, and we were also not at the stage where Scott Morrison told every Australian abroad, not just in China, to come flocking home at the same time. And then, of course, so many of them proved they couldn't adhere to the self-isolation quarantine requirements, and so of course they had to be supervised. It has absolutely nothing to do with racism, because aside from anything else, not all of the people who were quarantined on Christmas Island were Chinese Australian, and not all of the people who are now quarantined in hotels are white. I mean, it is sickening, this political opportunism that we are seeing from certain people, and to make this kind of leap, Andrew, I mean, God, I don't know how they've got there, but somehow they've got there, and in the process they've made themselves look extremely silly.
It is so stupid. Can they imagine how they would get people, Australians landing on every airport still open in this country, then put them on planes somehow, ferried them all independently to Christmas Island? The cost, the danger to everyone involved in that transfer, it is an insane proposition. Daisy Cousens, thank you so much indeed for your time.